Hello, folks. We are going to do a kind of informal chat, talking about transits, looking at the transits that are around happening now, how you use them, what they mean, etc. So take a little break from looking at specific charts. Let's take a minute or two to look at transits. All right, let's see. Am I live? Is everything good? I'm live. Nobody's here yet, but I'm live. So let's talk about transits. Wait, we got Satya and Danny, Nicole. Hello, everybody. Gita. Great. So right today, I'm going to talk about transits. Tara, bring up hey Neil, how you work with transits, how you look for them, what they are, what they do. Okay. So, should we get started? Let's get started. I like this. The user's image is a Saturn glyph, and the username is not my problem. It's so perfect. Okay, let me switch the video over to this, and we'll start talking about things. I'll come back every now and then to see if you got questions. So, when you're going to work with transits, you can get started with something like this. This is just a chart of current positions. Okay? So you can just start to think about, well, right now, Venus is in Scorpio. What's Venus like when it's in Scorpio? And then that's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of vibration, you can say, that's going on right now. So it can be simple like that. Venus and Mercury are in Scorpio, so there's a Scorpio thing going on with communications or something, romantic communications right now, likely. This is a very simple way you can get started with transits. Look, Jupiter is in Sagittarius and Saturn is in Capricorn. Okay, so the two big guys are in their own sign. What does it mean? What does it mean? That's the hard part. Let me show you what the observations are first, and then what does it mean is the hard part. And one of the reasons why what does it mean is the hard part is because you're doing hypothesis. When you're doing astrology, you're doing hypothesis, which means you're doing educated guessing. You're doing informed and educated guessing. So it's not like you just rip the knowledge out of an astrology chart. The astrology chart has to be comfortable with you and warm up to you and talk to you. So sometimes you have to wait a little bit. You just make your observations, and then you just go and have a cup of coffee. And then you kind of just, all of a sudden it hits you. The information comes across. Oh yeah, Venus is in Scorpio right now. Doesn't that make perfect sense? Because look what's going on. So don't always force things. It's hard. Like, for example, if you're an astrologer and you go on a YouTube show, you're under pressure. Like, what does this mean? Tell me right now. Boom, boom. Or if you're in a reading and stuff. But actually, that's why it's a good time to prepare things beforehand or look beforehand, so you have time for things to warm up and sink in. So observations here are like, these planets are in these particular signs. It's the simplest place to start. Okay? Got any question about that super simple way of using transits? You just look at where the planets are currently. And you say, well, okay, Jupiter's in Sagittarius, so I guess this would be a good time for me to learn some new thing. Broaden my horizons, broaden my wisdom, taking some new wisdom, taking some new information. Kind of learn new worldviews, because Jupiter's in Sagittarius. The whole time that Jupiter is in Sagittarius is a good time to do something like that, more or less, right? This is a very entry-level way of looking at transits. I got Saturn in Capricorn. Maybe this is a good time to get down and dirty. Maybe this is a good time to get to the nitty-gritty. Maybe this is a good time to get some chores done. Maybe this is a good time to be strong and patient and slow instead of quick and explosive. Because after all, that's what Saturn does when it's in Capricorn. Okay. Let me see. So you have any questions about this super basic approach to using transits? Satya is saying, is this chart a mundane chart of a local calculation for where you are right now? All you have to do is open any astrology program, click new, and click OK. And then you're almost guaranteed to get a transit chart for that moment. And as for what location it is and what time it is, that's irrelevant. Isn't that interesting? So let's talk about why that's irrelevant. For example, this chart is for Iowa, someplace in Iowa, because this program that I use is defaulting to Iowa, and I never changed it. But it makes no difference. You know why it makes no difference? The only thing that the time and place affect is the ascendant, and therefore the houses, because houses are based on the ascendant. When you are looking at transits, it's very, very unimportant where the ascendant is. Do you know why? Because it's very, very, very fast. That's another point I want to bring up soon. When you're looking at transits, what a transit means is a movement, right? Transition, transportation. Trans means going across, right? Transit means moving. So you're looking at how the planets are moving. When you look at a birth chart, you have a snapshot. It's not a transit, it's a still frame. It's a freeze frame. But when you are looking at transits, you're looking at continuing motion of planets. So if you got some guy that's running by you, how important is that compared to some guy that's going to sit down right in front of you for 15 minutes? So it's the same thing with transits. When transits rush by, then their effect doesn't have that long to influence anything, symbolically speaking. But when the transits move slowly over a point, then it's really important. Okay? So therefore, the ascendant is so fast. The ascendant moves every 2 hours through an entire sign. So the position of the ascendant is inconsequential. So you don't really care about the location of a transit chart. Now, what I'm showing you here is like kindergarten transit reading. So you will be able to anchor transits to houses. Okay, because if the ascendant is inconsequential, then houses are inconsequential, and then you just threw away 1/3 of your astrological toolbox. So you will be able to use houses with transits, but not with the transiting ascendant. And I'll show you that technique later. There's another way to get an ascendant, an anchor point. But as Melissa is saying, Melissa, a couple of comments down, said you cross-reference with what house it's transiting to for yourself. So you see how she's saying for herself? Transiting relative to you. So in other words, here you got Saturn in, here's an easy way to explain it. Here you have Saturn in Capricorn. So what house is Capricorn in your chart? If you use a whole sign system, then that's going to pertain to that house. So for example, in my chart, Capricorn is the first house. Now I have Saturn. Saturn is in Capricorn for everybody. For me, that's also in my first house. So for anybody and everybody, right now is a good time to get serious, do things slow, do things patient, do things thoroughly, do the dirty work, deal with the things that are not celebrations, deal with the things that are hard work. And for me, it's my first house. So A, it's more important, and B, it has to do with the body. Okay? If your ascendant is Sagittarius, then Capricorn is your second house. So it has more to do with your family, perhaps your diet, perhaps your health, perhaps your money, because those are the subjects of the second house. Point D to point, or point dot point, says is sidereal better than tropical? Just go see victicare.com/tropical. Rajiv wants to know in Jagannath Hora when you select tropical zodiac. In Jagannath Hora, you can select tropical zodiac and you can click a box somewhere to get the sidereal nakshatras automatically according to whatever Ayanamsha you pick. So look on my channel and search for a video that shows you how to do the settings in Kala and Jagannath Hora. Okay. Let's see, any other questions? Okay, so this is really simple, right? Super simple, super basic. And you know what? That's totally fine. It's really good to be super simple and super basic. Because we're not technicians anyway. And you are actually this is the thing about divination. The thing about divination is that you're communicating with the divine. You're not communicating with a petri dish. So you don't use a microscope and tweezers and X-Acto knives with the divine, with divination. You have to use bhakti. Because the divine is a person. Bhakti means love. Bhakti means devotion. The divine is a person. It's a being. And when you're doing divinity, you're wanting to get information from that being through some vehicle, such as the positions of planets. So it's really more important than slicing things up into minute details. Really more important is to have a devotional attitude towards the thing. To have the right kind of attitude towards the thing and let the thing request it to talk to you. So if you go in there thinking I'm the most expert astrologer in the world, I'm going to use these fancy, fancy systems, then you're kind of going in, rushing into your divination as if you were a scientist looking at a petri dish. But God's not a petri dish. So better to just be simple. Simple things will give you amazing results if you have the right attitude. Yeah. All right, so let's go forward. So now Neil has an interesting question. If there's any major transits, like that thing that happened with Mars-Ketu coming up soon. Now, you know what, Neil? There's something that's exactly like Mars-Ketu coming up soon. This is really weird, actually. So do you remember what happened with Mars-Ketu? That was my last time hey, April. The last time I actually did a video on transits was with this Mars-Ketu dance. So let me switch back over to the program and show you why it's called transits, because this still looks like a snapshot. So let me get out a tool here. Options, change time tool. I wonder if you can see this. Yeah, you can't see this little tool that I have up, but there's a little tool in the window now that lets me change the time. So let's just move it back by a week. So Saturn is still in Capricorn. Look where Ketu is. I'll go back by a month now. You see how Ketu got close to Mars? So now you're looking at how the planets move over time. Now, can you see now how close Mars and Ketu are? Mars is the red guy, and Ketu is the upside down headphones, gray. So Mars at 6 degrees, Ketu at 3 degrees. This program is not really the best at looking at these things. It's just handy for me to use it right now because it's not even showing what's retrograde and what's not, which is a big point, actually. Let me actually bring something up. Oh, it is. Okay, so it's showing Saturn retrograde. Okay. So what happened with Mars and Ketu was they got together really close and stayed together really close for a very long time. You see how long they're staying together? Now I'm going forward by a week. Weeks and weeks are going by where they stay in the near vicinity of each other. Look at this, they're going to come back. Months and months are going by where they stay very close to each other. And you know, Mars and Ketu close together is a very difficult thing. Okay, and then they separate. So they separated in November. But now look what happens. Neil wanted to know if there's something similar going on. Something similar indeed is going on. Now watch how Ketu is going to dance with Saturn. So we're going to go forward. So now we're talking December 7th. There's Saturn and Ketu are still far apart. Christmas, they're still about 15 degrees apart. January, we're talking about February now. They're still 10 degrees apart. Now we're starting to get close. So we're talking about spring. This spring, around April, Saturn and Ketu start to get within a few degrees of each other. So it's going to be similar. You got a malefic with Ketu, just like we had in last March through last October. We had a malefic with Ketu. So once again, in 2019, just as it was in 2018, from the spring for quite a while, we'll find out how long in a minute. We'll fast forward it. We're going to have a malefic with Ketu. It's going to be different. It's a different malefic. Mars is the impatient one, the angry and impatient one, where Saturn is the sad, slow, patient one. So with Saturn-Ketu conjunctions, you get a tremendous amount of introversion, which can easily be depressing. A lot of critical inwardness happens when Saturn and Ketu get together, critically looking inward. So this is going to start around April, end of March, and then let's see how long it's going to go and what's going to happen. Now, what I want you to pay attention to now is look for that little RX symbol to pop up. Because RX means the planet's moving retrograde. It means it's turning around and going backwards. So that's what actually made Mars hang out with Ketu for so long. Because Mars is going forward. Usually it would just go over Ketu like this. It moves at a much different speed than Ketu. But it moved over Ketu and then started to move back with it, then past it, and then started to move forward with it. And that's what made it stay so long. It just so happens that Saturn's little swing, where it goes retrograde and then direct, is also going to happen in conjunction with Ketu. So keep an eye for that. There's Jupiter retrograded. Now Saturn retrogrades. So this particular spot where a planet changes, you see it's on April 29th, Saturn's going forward. And on April 30th, Saturn's going backwards. So, Saturn planets just don't go, ding, I'm going to change my direction. They slow down, stop, and then slowly go the other direction and then speed up. So Saturn, and look at that. Look at the station. It's right where Ketu is. They're on the same degrees. Saturn's going to station at 20 degrees Capricorn, 31 minutes. When Ketu is at 20 degrees Capricorn, 32 minutes. So that's a huge conjunction in the sky, of Saturn and Ketu. You can use if you know what Saturn represents and what Ketu represents, you can be creative now and come up with interpretations. The technical part of astrology is just to learn what to observe. The intuitive part of astrology is to imagine the combinations. And you're free to imagine your combinations if you've got your basic definitions clear and according to the system. If you have Saturn really in your mind representing what Saturn actually represents and Ketu actually represents, then go ahead and imagine. So like I'm saying, it's like critical introspection, sadness, depth, deep things, deep inner work, getting the hard stuff done on the inside, dealing with internal things. Being really patient with yourself, especially if this is going to be a first house, fourth house transit for you, where it's something that's inside. All right, so here you get Saturn going back. Now that means Ketu always goes back, so that means Saturn's going to follow Ketu now. So see, they're still going to stick together for a long, long time. They're still really close together. Now we're all the way up into September. I'm going by week. Saturn, so you watch again for the next station. This is the end of the retrogression session. Saturn's retrogression started, I forgot at the date, sometime in the spring, and then it's going to end here in the fall, September 16th. So you look for that span. the span of where a planet begins its retrogression and where the planet ends its retrogression. The two extreme points are where it stops and stands still. And those are going to be really intensive points. The reason why is because, like I said, if a planet moves fast, then who cares? It's gone in a second. Oh, it has this great effect, but this effect only lasts for a second. If a planet moves slow, then whatever effect it has affects you for a long time. So, and when a planet never moves slower than when it's stationed. The station means standing still. So you watch for those points. So you see Saturn has only really gone about a degree past Ketu the whole time. They stay really close together, and then you go forward from here, and it'll go bye-bye. Now the two of them will split for good. So it's practically a copy of 2018. 2018, we had from March to October, Mars and Ketu sticking together like dancers. And now, in 2019, the same months basically, like April to October, we're going to have Saturn doing the exact same thing with Ketu. So Ketu is really getting at us in 2018 and 2019. And Ketu is not the party planet. Ketu is not the extroverting planet. Ketu is not the gregarious, outgoing planet. Ketu is the internalizing, inward, deepening, downward planet. Saturn is a downer too. And Capricorn is a downer. Right? So get ready to figure out in 2019 what the hell you're supposed to do with all this downer stuff. Get ready to not be scared of figuring out what downers are good for. What downer means get serious. Downer means get real. Get practical. Downer means protect yourself. It means keep yourself safe. Don't have huge ambitions. Get the practical stuff done that you got to be doing to survive. Keep your head down. Keep your focus forward. Keep doing your daily stuff. And work on your inside stuff. This is your ideal time. Saturn-Ketu, this year, 2019, with this whole Saturn-Ketu dance, spanning from spring to fall, it's your time to work on your inner sadness. Just like last year, from spring to fall, it was our time to work on our impatience and frustration. Trying not to be impatient, trying not to be frustration, trying not to be explosive. This year, it's going to be trying not to be sad, trying not to be depressed, trying to be real. So if it's Saturn and Ketu in Capricorn, how are you not going to be sad? How are you not going to be depressed? By being real. By seeing, wow, this is the only thing in the world that I own right now. A stupid green bottle cap. But wow, it's kind of cool. Makes cool sounds. It's kind of like a musical instrument. That's how you're going to not be depressed. You got to pay attention to these little useless things that you think are useless, that people throw out, people don't care about, people don't think are a big cause for a party. I cleaned the dishes today. Let me give myself a freaking, let me go out, you know what I mean? Let me give myself a pat on the back. Because I did it. I got this basic stuff done. So that's the deal for 2019, especially from the spring to the fall, is see the small, dirty, unimportant stuff. See it. Pay attention to it. See it as being important and interesting. Find out what it really is. And otherwise you're going to feel like, God, I'm so poor. I don't have anything. I don't have what these other people have. Life is a drag. I can't. It's just too much internal pressure. A lot of internal pressure on me. I just want to give up. don't go that way. The way that you cannot go that way is say, wow, look at this little thing that I found here while I was cleaning behind the couch. It's so cool. Let me take a minute to look at it. Let me take a minute to appreciate things that I never even thought of before. Just, especially work-related things or bone-related things, or things that are related to Saturn. Fix your vacuum cleaners, fix your brooms, fix the tools that you need to be able to do the dirty work that you're going to be doing. You should try to be enjoying that stuff this year. All right, so I just kind of actually gave you like a 2019 forecast. Didn't really intend for it to go that way. But Neil asked that question, what's going to happen this year? And this is the major thing that's happening this year. Is the Saturn's going to dance with Ketu exactly the same way in exactly the same months that Mars danced with Ketu in 2018. How does that sound, Neil? Any questions about what I just said? This is funny. This is funny. Gita asked if there's going to be political upheaval for the U.S. You definitely got to say yes to that, right? I mean, Donald Trump is the president. So he's definitely going to be political upheaval. Every single day is a political upheaval for the U.S. So now, how would you answer a question like that? Seriously. You can't really do it. You can't really do it just with what I have on the screen right now. So let me graduate you now out of kind of preschoolish transit. There's a few other things I wanted to show you from the preschool too. But in order to answer a question like, how is this going to affect me in detail? Or is this going to affect me? Like, have you ever noticed that you may have the worst year in your life and your friend might not? Or you may have a great year and your friend may not. You've probably noticed that, right? Your neighbor's house gets attacked by and destroyed by a tornado and yours is pretty okay. So what's that all about? Like, I thought Saturn was going to dance with Ketu and Capricorn for everybody. So we have to graduate this transit technique or technology to the next level to be able to see how it affects something. Like, how will this affect the U.S.? How do these transits affect the U.S.? How do these transits affect John Smith as opposed to Sally Joe? So the way that you do that is you introduce a second chart and mix it with the transit chart. And I'll show you that in a moment. But there's a couple of other interesting things that you can do even without that second chart that I also wanted to go over. Well, let's see what other questions you got. Yeah, Neil. So it sounds good for spirituality. Ketu, you can always use Ketu towards spirituality because you're always going to get introspection with it. All right, so, right, like Danny said, so you need the U.S. birth data to figure out. To get a chart for the U.S., one special thing about the U.S. is that it's, or you could just understand the character of the nation. So the U.S. is a hugely Mars-dominated nation by its character, and it's like it's a very Sagittarian Mars-Jupiter type of combo. So there was more turmoil going on with the United States in 2018 than there probably will be in 2019, is my guess. Because in 2018, I'm making that hypothesis on the basis that in 2018 we had Mars involved with Ketu. Whereas in 2018 it's Saturn, and Saturn is not a hugely important planet for the U.S. as far as I remember from the U.S. chart. As far as I remember the U.S. chart and also the U.S. character, it's Mars that's really the big guy. Now, if the U.S. has Mars in its foundation chart somewhere in Capricorn, that would make me change my hypothesis. Or not just somewhere in Capricorn, but if it's someplace where Saturn would aspect. But let's save that until we talk about the double double chart. Okay. So you guys are saying Cancer rising for the U.S. We got to see. I got to check that out. Before we do that, let me show you a couple of other things. Let me show you the thing. Yeah, obvious, right, Sonia? The Saturn-Ketu conjunction will cause turmoil in whatever houses. That's what I said before. This is one way that you can link it to how will it affect you. Why does it affect my neighbor and not me? Because this was in your neighbor's first house, whereas in yours it's only in your 12th house. So it affects you differently. Okay, so Saturn is going to be doing this whole thing in Capricorn. So if Capricorn happens to be your first house, your 4th house, then it's going to be really strong. But if Capricorn is in another house, maybe if it's the 10th house, it'll be a different type of effect. 7th house, different type of effect. Here, so Nasreen is saying, how can we find where the transits will be in a personal chart? You just have to know your personal chart. There's 2 ways to do it. One is a guesstimate, an approximation, and one is an exact. So even if you only have a chart like what's on the screen now, you can approximate if you know your own chart. So just make sure that you're doing your transit. If your transit chart is sidereal, then compare it to a sidereal version of your birth chart. If your transit chart is tropical, then compare it to a tropical version of your birth chart. Better if they're both tropical, but at least don't mix apples and oranges, because then you'll be totally off. If you just have them both be the same, then at least you'll get the conjunctions right and at the right time. So if your ascendant is Capricorn, then oh wow, this Saturn Ketu thing is going to really affect me because my first house is Capricorn. See? Or if I have Venus in Capricorn at 20 degrees, right where those guys stationed. I better think about how this is going to affect my love life. I better prepare for that. How this is going to affect my cooperation, my Venus things in my life. Okay, that's the simple way. The exact way is you actually stick your chart in here, and I'll show you how to do that before we're done. Let me show you some other basic things to do without going to a bi-wheel, without looking at 2 charts at once. Another simple thing to do for transits. Let me just rewind this to today. So another simple thing to do with transits is to look at ingresses. They're called sankrantis in Sanskrit. An ingress and the lunations. So you look at the moon's synod, they call it in Greek. Amivas, they call it in Sanskrit. New moon, we call it this time. Look at the moon's conjunction to the sun. Think about that. The other thing, too, is it's a little hard in a program like this where you can't get your Nakshatras. But if you don't use your Nakshatras in transits, you're also throwing out like maybe half of your astrology tools. You're taking like half of your astrology tools out of your toolbox, or at least a fourth. The nakshatra that the transiting planet is in is so crucial to understanding how to interpret the effects of that transit. So that's unfortunately not on the screen right now, and I can't do anything about it because this program, it won't let me. But you can get, if you can get your maps out, you can switch it over to sidereal, and then most programs will tell you, or you can get your maps out. So let me show you what an ingress is. So typically an ingress will be for the sun. Typically ingress means when the sun enters the sign. So typically an ingress will be for the sun. And then typically the best way to do the moon's thing is to do not the ingress of a moon into a sign, but the moon's conjunction with the sun, the new moon. Okay, so if we want to know let's say the last time the sun ingressed. There you go. So here's where it ingressed Sagittarius. Sorry, it's flipping around. Just looking for the hour. There you go. It's at 00 in Sagittarius. So now think of that as the first house. So the sun has moved in, and this will be for the duration of the suns. This chart will tell you about the duration of the suns. This will be an effect that will last for the duration that the sun is in Sagittarius, and when it ingresses into Capricorn, you make a new chart. So here you got kind of good things going on, starting November 22nd. So this is in conjunction with, or conjunction is a bad word to use in astrological circles. This is in coincidence with Saturn and Ketu actually finally getting nice and far apart, getting out of Aquarius, where they were together forever. So that's one thing where you breathe easier in November. And then the next thing that you breathe easier in November is this is actually quite a nice ingress chart. Because you got Saturn in its own sign in Capricorn, Venus, which is second house for the sun. You got Venus in its own sign in 11th house from the sun. You got Jupiter in its own sign, first house from the sun, and you got Moon exalted, 6th from the sun. So the planets are in pretty good condition. So you can see that, okay, even though something else may be yuck, and, dashas is a whole other layer to throw on this. Dashas are also happening at the same time. So even though something else might be yuck, this is probably a month where people get a breather. Most people will get a breather, unless you're going to get, you look at your exact chart. Maybe there's a station that's going to happen during the period of this month, exactly on some point. A malefic is going to station on exactly some point in my chart, in some bad dignity or something. So even though the month is pretty good overall, I have this intense thing happen in it. All right, so this is one way to say, well, I guess the month of December, the astrological month of Sagittarius, is going to be pretty nice. I could probably enjoy a little bit because Venus is in Libra in the 11th house. I can probably, my finances might be okay, even though it's the Christmas season, because the second house has got its Saturn in it, stays in it, second lord, second house. 11th lord, 11th house. Maybe it's not the best season for the businesses. I don't know how it's going actually, but it seems like the 11th lord is not leaving the 11th house, second lord is not leaving the second house, so people don't do that much spending. And the 6th house also has a planet exalted in it. So people are pretty smart about not taking out loans and using credit cards. Isn't that funny? That might be why they're wise with Jupiter and Sagittarius in the first house. People get a little bit wise this year. Maybe don't spend as much money. Let's see what effect that has on the overall economy. But I don't know if it's going to be true overall. I already know my friend who works in retail. It's got like 20,000 orders in one day. So I don't know how true this is, but this is what the chart looks like to me. All right, so that's called an ingress. And then you just look for the next ingress. And then you'll say, all right, this next month, which is the Capricorn month. Come on, baby. There we go. Then Capricorn month. Ooh, it's also got lots of planets that are kind of okay, but not quite the same. So the January feeling is still okay. I mean, Jupiter is still good. Jupiter's in Sagittarius in the 12th house. But Venus is no longer in Virgo. Moon is no longer in Taurus. So it's not quite as great. And Saturn and Ketu are approaching each other, so it's kind of like the goodness is wearing off a little bit. So it looks like that month of January you start to feel the forecast, the foreboding of what's going to be happening when Ketu and Saturn get together. So this way you can do ingress charts. You had any question about Ingress charts? And then I'll show you a lunation chart. Hey, Parisa. Yeah, I'll give you an example of the Nakshatras with the lunation chart, because it's particularly important. Nakshatras are particularly important for the moon. Tara, you know what you say off topic, but do you have a list available showing the Nakshatras, sidereal, and corresponding tropical degrees? I do. That's one of the things I give as a free gift to the people that do the Astrology Hub stuff with me. Do you guys know about astrologyhub.com? So we're doing a lot of stuff together this year. And this year I'm doing a whole month this December. Like not this December, but this December of the next year. I'm doing a whole month with them, where I'll be leading like some classes with them and so forth. And I tend to give that nakshatra thing as the free gift. Let me show you what it looks like. And this, I'll also put this in my book, which is going to come out in a couple of weeks now. Let me see if I can show you this. You can quickly steal a glimpse. Window capture. Let's get pages. You see it? It's too big, isn't it? So this is a list of where they are right now. Hang on a minute. I'll fix this up a little better. See, you can see them all now. So that's the corresponding tropical degrees. So you take a screenshot of that, and you got your list. Alrighty. Let me see if there's any questions specifically about Sankrantis or Ingresses. And otherwise go on to lunations, and then show you biwheels and how important biwheels are while time is flying by. Where can we find your book? I have several books. You can just go to my site, victorcara.com, and go to the books section. Follow the link to the books. I got a couple. Or you can search Victor Cara in books on Amazon. So Cheryl is asking. Yeah, you're right, Cheryl. Wikipedia also has now added tropical coordinates to their list, to their nakshatra list. Which is so interesting. All right, so Cheryl says, does this mean that transit charts besides major ingresses are basically useless unless there's a notable aspect to a natal chart? Yeah. It does mean that. Let me put it in a different way. If a transit is actually affecting a point in your birth chart, then it's 100 times more important than just the fact that it's happening. So the chart that's on the screen right now just shows you what's happening. If something in this chart affects your birth chart, then that part of the chart, that part of the transit chart becomes 100 times more important and gets to be 100 times more specific in how you can interpret it. So, for example, if something in your chart is at 10 degrees Capricorn, then this lunation, what do we call this? This ingress of the sun is much more important. This month is much more important because it starts with Saturn right at your marker. See, but if you don't have anything at 10 degrees Capricorn, 10 degrees Cancer, 10 degrees Pisces, because Saturn's hitting that by its aspect, 10 degrees Libra, because Saturn hits that by its aspect, or any of these points, there's a lot of places where somebody could be affected by the thing. I want to save that for the biwheel, though, because it's way easier to see this with the biwheel. All right, let's show you how to do a lunation and how you use a nakshatra. Nakshatra is really easy. So the lunation would just be, put the conjoin the sun and moon together and then get a full moon. So let me just show you how that looks. If you conjoin the sun and moon together, we're talking December 21st. Actually, currently we're right on top of a conjunction. So this is today. Tomorrow, next day, moon went past. This is the 7th. What's the day? The 7th. You see how the moon moves really fast. Anyway, you don't really have to. I don't know why I'm being OCD and getting it to be like exact, because it's not that necessary. But here is basically an exact conjunction between the sun and moon. So this is right where your Amyavas is. This is right where your synod is, the conjunction between sun and moon, which marks a new lunar cycle, marks a new lunar month. So this is a chart then for that month, also from the moon's point of view. But you know what's cool to do with this is, since this is the moon's chart, you say, all right, 15 degrees tropical Sagittarius, well, that's Jeshta. So this lunation, this lunar cycle starts in Jeshta. Now, the full moon is going to be somewhere a little bit more than 180 degrees away. So let's see where that one is. And then see the nakshatra of the full moon. And then we can make a plan for the month. Even more than a prediction, you can make a plan for the month. Like, here's what I want to go from point A and point B. I want to incorporate these two nakshatras. So if you want to do 2 weeks, 1 week, 2 week, so now you're pretty close. So just pop the moon so it's 180 degrees away from the sun. So you get the sun is 29 degrees Sagittarius. So just kick the moon like you want to see it at 29 degrees Gemini. By the time it gets there, it'll probably be like 30 degrees Gemini. So give it another day. 26. Give it a couple of hours. There you go, 29. Sun's at 0. There you go. There's your exact full moon. So it's just in Cancer. Sun is just in Capricorn. Moon is just in Cancer. If you want to do tropical zodiac analysis of this, it's like, ooh, we're crossing something this month. So and then this is what you do. You do a few different techniques at once. You just look overall and you say, well, hey, look, this month Saturn is getting kind of close. We're starting to feel Saturn getting close with Ketu. On the Ingress this month, the sun is moved into Capricorn, where this Saturn and Ketu thing is conjoining. With the full moon, it's getting a big aspect. It's getting a significant aspect from Saturn. And it's getting close to Rahu. This is getting, well, no, it's 26 degrees away. It's far away from that. But, well, let's see what the nakshatra is. The first nakshatra was Jeshta. The nakshatra of the new moon was Jeshta. The nakshatra of the full moon is going to be, let me see, 0 degrees Cancer these days. 0 degrees 47 minutes. 0 degrees 31 minutes. So look at that. The moon is right on the edge, not only of a Rashi, but also of a nakshatra. So it's 0 degrees 47 minutes begins Ardra. So it's coming out of the dough. It's coming out of Mrigashirsha and it's going into the storm, Ardra, the hunter. So the first one was Jeshta. So this could be political upheaval. Because the cycle is evolving. Jeshta, the politician, who is just grabbing whatever it wants. And it involves Mrigashirsha, the doe, who runs away out of fear of being grabbed. And then it's right on the edge of Ardra, which is the one who rescues the doe. But not like with hugs, but by killing the Jeshta. So here you got a lunar cycle, because somebody asked about if there's political upheaval. There's always political upheaval in the world, so it's always safe to say there's going to be. But in this, the way that I would see this lunation cycle is these people that are trying to be the best and trying to be better than everybody else are going to get caught. This lunar cycle, it's better to learn how to be helpful. This is also you want to try to keep your interpretations in line and in keeping with all the other interpretations that you're doing, all the other things that you're seeing in that same chart. So the fact that you got Saturn in Capricorn, Jupiter in Sagittarius, Saturn getting close to Ketu, it's moving on a theme of being moral and humble. And so that's the way you want to interpret your lunation on that, along the same line. So you're beginning with Jeshta, which is not moral or humble. Jeshta is really ambitious. Gimme. And then it's moving into Mrigashirsha, which is super humble and super like, I just want to help other people and make everybody feel okay. So what you expect is there's going to be a lot of does running away from hunters. And what you want to aim for with the height of the lunation, with the full moon, is knock those guys down, knock down the hunters. That could be another type of Saturn work, is to try to get rid of the bad stuff, get rid of the bad people. So this month coming up, starting like now, until the next new moon, it's a time to try to identify the things in your life that are predatory, the ways that you're behaving that are predatory to others, and the way that predators are attacking you. Identify them, both sides of the spectrum, clearly, and work over the first 2 weeks. Work over the first 2 weeks to do that identification process of how am I being a predator and how am I being the prey. And from the second half of the month to the next full moon, you work on killing those things, stopping those behaviors, getting those people out of your life or in line, controlled. So that's how lunations work. Kitna prashna. You have any question? Yeah, so see, James made a comment. He says that full moon is right over my fortune. So this is a Persian principle, I think, called a lot of fortune. So he's familiar with how he's going to use transits. He's saying like, oh, I have a point in my chart that's right where this transit thing is. So this transit's meaningful to me more than my neighbor. Even though my neighbor is living under the same moon that I am, it's going to affect James more than it's going to affect the person next to him. And the other thing about this particular lunar cycle is it looks like it's going over so many boundaries. It's going over a Rashi and a Nakshatra. The full moon is going to straddle those boundaries between Ardra and Mrigashirsha and between Gemini and Cancer. So it looks like a kind of thing where this month you actually make a change. So the first half of the month is identifying ways that you're being too aggrandizing, too self-aggrandizing, or ways that you're being too exploitive, or way that people are exploiting you, and then changing it. Right, so we didn't get to look at bi-wheel transits. Right, so Sonia's like she's got a real bi-wheely type of question now. What about transit of Saturn and Ketu over natal malefic planets? So there's only 3 minutes left in today's session. So how about we do that? How about next session we're going to do bi-wheel transits? So that's pretty cool. And this week we covered some things that aren't usually discussed. We talked about how you do lunar cycles using Nakshatras, how to do solar ingresses using a solar chart that kind of has a house system based in it too, based on the sun being the first house. how to just do generic transit interpretations by seeing, well, Venus is in Scorpio. I guess it's kind of a saucy time, sassy time, sexy time. And then what house in my chart is Scorpio? That will modify it to me. Does it affect anything in my chart? Thanks, everybody. So, all right. So stay tuned for next week. Next week we shall do the postgraduate study of transits. Now, we're not really close to postgraduate study. This is the stuff that we did today was like elementary school transit stuff, but don't feel like, gosh, it's just elementary school stuff. You do most of your learning in elementary school. The next week's topic will be more like a high school approach to transits, where you're going to use a bi-wheel. There's more than that, even that is complicated. It has to coexist with other timing systems as well. And that's where I would think it gets into like postgraduate studies, where it's like you have to consider that this is also going on at the same time as dasha cycles are going on and progressions. All right. It was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.